Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Reconnect with Plant Wisdom. It's me, Tigria Gardenia. Before we start, please hit that like, that subscribe, that follow button. It is thanks to your support that this podcast exists and that it keeps on growing. And there is just so much goodness in here. And as my guest just said, there aren't many podcasts that are having these conversations. So we want to be able to reach as many people as possible. And speaking of my guest, I just cannot wait to introduce you to Christine Ruch. She is, oh my God, there's just so much, such a beautiful, amazing, intriguing conversation around how we turn ingredients back into plants and animals who want to share an experience with us. And she just has this way of connecting in to the plant world for expression and for self-expression that I am just so excited for you to hear. So I'm not even going to fill you with words. I just want you to hear it directly from her mouth. So this is episode 129, Evolution of What We Eat for Self-Healing. Welcome to Reconnect with Plant Wisdom. I'm your host, Tigria Gardenia, nature-inspired mentor, certified life coach, and the founder of the Naturally Conscious community. For over a decade, I've been known as a world ambassador for plant advocacy, working closely with plants to share their practical wisdom to help you consciously embody the elements of life that nourish your evolution. In this podcast, I delve into ancient and modern knowledge from biology to spirituality about the wondrous ways of plants. Together, we'll explore how ecosystem thinking helps you overcome limiting beliefs, understand the true nature of relationships, and live an authentic, impactful life. Hello, Christine. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am doing great and I'm really excited. We just had a conversation just a few days ago and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to do this interview. I can't wait to have her on the show. So before we get started, can you tell everybody who is Christine? Is it Ruch?
It's Rook like book.
Ruch like book. Oh, I like that. Ruch.
Yeah,
Christine Ruch. Tell
yeah.
everybody who's Christine Ruch.
My name is Christine, and I am a holistic transformation guide for women with multiple sclerosis. But a lot of my work in my past and my whole entire life has been a devotion to the healing path as like learned by nature and learned by by Mother Nature and by plants, and also my own healing path as well. Um, but yeah, really taking cues from how we are authentically designed to heal, um, and kind of moving away from the mainstream paradigm around what the healing process looks like, and also challenging assumptions about um, challenging our assumptions and our how deeply held beliefs and wiring around what the healing process should look like in order to get to one person's authentic healing, to allow that to come forth. So yeah, that's what I do.
One of the things that I took away from our conversation last time, it was like a little note that I put to myself is there are people, oftentimes when I'm having conversations, you know how it is, it's easier to see things from the outside than it is from the inside. And I felt like I put myself a little note that about how I felt like you had tapped into, probably without even realizing it as you were getting into it, and then only later were able to kind of like formulate things around it into kind of the extended amount of healing that we have that plants have, like the ability for plants to really self-heal things that we as humans have lost that contact with, and
Yeah.
that original blueprint. And so I want to dive definitely into that before I dive into it, because I feel like you came into this from a food perspective in some ways. And I'm going to preface this that the reason I'm so excited about this is because, unfortunately, my experience only, everyone, this is my experience. I experience that a lot of people that come through it through food have a deep love of food. I have a deep love of food, but food as resource, as sustenance, and as plants as resource. But as we were talking, it really goes beyond that with you. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that journey. Like, how did you get into food? And then I definitely am going to ask you more about this whole like tapping into the blueprint that we as like beings of nature have to self-heal. But I want to kind of get there from the food perspective.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for asking me that. It's like a pretty, I mean, not to sound like super cheesy or anything like that, but I mean, I'm being honest. It's a pretty sacred, mystical, and like mind blowing path that's taken me on. That started as something really simple, a long, long, long time ago, in just like my youth wanting to. I don't know. In my youth, I was really attracted to like health food and all of that kind of stuff. And in my college years, and exploring like diet and all of those type of things as we do. And then when I was and then I'd always had a love of culinary and always been in the kitchen. And from the earliest of ages, like driving my parents crazy cooking and oh my gosh, throwing out food that I didn't think had integrity. I will never forget like being like in college and I threw away all my parents' tuna fish. And they were so mad at me. I have so many memories of like all the crazy things I did in my youth and in my college years, like as I was getting closer and closer to like food. And then in 2006, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and that was a deep time of like learning to trust myself because, you know, 20 years ago, there was like definitely not nearly as much of a recognition around the ability for us to heal with diet. I mean, there was definitely things like Weight Watchers or low fat or like Atkins or like low sodium and those kind of things. But to really harness that was super esoteric and so woo woo that nobody could even like. I was just and then even to think like maybe you could address that food using food with like diabetes or like heart disease or something like that. But certainly not with like multiple sclerosis or an autoimmune disease. Like that seemed like absolutely impossible. And so, but thankfully, as like the universe would have it, I already had a relationship with a naturopath. And so she's the one who started me on my journey to healing or addressing my health issues, addressing MS through food first. And that felt really radical to me at the time, even though I like ate organic and I grew my own food and I composted and I had a membership to a CSA and all of those kind of like culturally acceptable natural food like ways in. This was sort of like my family thought I was absolutely nuts, you know, but I just knew so deeply that there was more there. And actually, to be fair, I didn't ever intend to treat MS with food. Like that was never even truly available to me. But what was that I was so sick at the time that I was diagnosed. My health was so poor and I was so sick that I just really felt like I had a long intolerance of pharmaceutical medicine and a lot of intolerance. So I just thought, well, gosh, you know, maybe I'll just start this like elimination diet as a way to strengthen my body so that then I can withstand pharmaceutical intervention for this. And so that's kind of how it began. And then it ended up being just that alone, like a 6-week elimination diet, fully supported by my naturopath and fully informed by lab testing and all of that stuff. It was really the thing that opened a whole doorway to an entire way of being, an entirely new, like profound appreciation and like humbleness around the intelligence of plants to support my healing. And I was so like literally like on my knees with like gratitude and awe and shock, because just in 6 weeks I went from barely able to walk, um, and very debilitated because my MS symptoms were primarily in my legs. And um, yeah, I was so debilitated. And in 6 weeks of this intensive elimination diet, I went from that to like running and sprinting and having so much vitality that just I was just speechless at like I was in so much reverence for what plants provided us. And then from there, I went and got my degree in holistic nutrition. And because I wanted to deepen my understanding, I was like, what happened to me? And like, what's going on? Like, this is way more profound than I ever could have imagined. And even though I was eating healthy, I wasn't eating healthy for me. And that was a journey to discover that not all food was the same in terms of nourishment for each person. It's so individual. And then from there, I began teaching, and I was a culinary instructor for the school that I went to, and I taught students the power of food and culinary nutrition, and culinary instructor. And then from then, I then transitioned and I opened my own restaurants, and I had multiple food brands and a restaurant in Boulder, Colorado for a decade. Teaching people, ultimately what I wanted to do is I wanted to normalize eating vegetables, and I wanted to normalize like there was like this disconnect at least 2013 when I opened, that healthy food was for like the hippie tree hugger kind of thing, and otherwise I don't know, it just wasn't like fully mainstream in terms of being highly accessible to just get something to eat that was super nourishing and filling. And so that was kind of my mission, was to just to normalize healthy food and make it the most delicious way, and teach people that like it doesn't need to be complicated, and it doesn't need to, and that actually the simplicity, and through that process then I was able to begin kind of what I would say channeling what the food wanted to be, like what its fullest expression wanted to be. I believe that plants want to have the fullest expression in your mouth, to invite you to eat it more, to invite you to appreciate its intelligence. And like that's what it strives for. It strives to bring beauty to you, not just in how it grows, but in how it's prepared and how it's processed and how it's eaten and how it tastes. And then by extension, once it's ingested, then all of its like healing starts to like come through. And just like going on that journey alone just completely changed my life. So that's a long answer to your question.
No, it's a great answer, because you touched on so many different elements that I kind of want to tap back on. I was feverishly taking certain notes. Like I need to touch on that and teach on that and teach on that. And I want to touch first of all, because I think I want to. This is kind of not related to plants and not related to plants for a second, but I do think it's such an important part. It's been such an important part of my journey because, as I shared with you, I have body dysmorphia. And so the relationship between food, and I'm a Taurus, so I'm a foodie. Everybody who's, listens to the podcast knows I love food. I love food. And that relationship of food and your body. So, in other words, the relationship between plants and animals, let's be honest, like the whole thing, and what comes in and connects to your body. I really feel that it's such a big part that's missing in our current cultural norms. The idea of children learning to experiment and form relationships with their food in order to find what is right for your body, and to feel extremely comfortable in rotating through or in eating what is not so much finicky. I think we mistake finicky, which does exist in the sense of like children that are not exposed to food, not having the palate. But also, you mentioned elimination diets and you mentioned other pieces, which I think we tend to think of only in the reference to disease or to weight or to these other pieces. When in reality, I mean, I think about the 40, almost 50-year journey I took to get to a place of listening to my body, relating to the food I eat, and not being worried about what anybody else was thinking. And especially when I came to live in Dominher, that was a big problem because Italians are very conservative in the way that they look at food. Like, they have certain tastes, they have certain meals, they have things that are combined in certain ways, they have things that are cut in certain ways and used in certain ways. And I didn't fit any of that norm because it's not my cultural background. And I felt very insecure in expressing myself and actually gained a lot of weight, felt very bad for a certain number of years. And I realized only later that it was me trying to culturally adapt to their food when I come from a Cuban background. I am just come a different type altogether. And that's not so. I went back now to eating for me. And I think that it is I would love to kind of hear as you journeyed through all these different parts from medicine to also, teaching to also restaurateur. How do you think we can introduce this into the cultural norm that says ultimately what you just said, like get to the place where the combination of plant expressing themselves as beautifully as possible, but also you giving yourself the opportunity to receive that food with your body and therefore also say, this isn't good for me, even if the world says that white rice is healthy. When I eat white rice, and I love white rice from a mental perspective, but when I eat white rice,
Right.
hell no. My body is like, what are you putting in me? Let me turn it into a block of jelly in your stomach that's going to sit there for 4 days. Like, and that's something that's happened only recently in the last few years of like, oh my goodness, my body does not want this. And I don't care what anybody else says relating to health. That's not how I eat. So how do you think we can help people, especially who have young children, explore and experiment this, like the combination of what good for your body and how does the plant want to express themselves on your plate so that you can see if those two are actually compatible. It's kind of like dating. Like you want your plants, you want the plants and animals and your stomach to date and like, feel good together. Are we a match?
Yeah, totally. Wow, that's such a thoughtful question, and I have so many answers. There's so many parts
Good.
to it. First, I want to touch on children. And gosh, I hope I can. I'm not taking notes now. I wish I was. I hope I can remember all of the parts and the way I would like to answer your question. But the first, as it relates to children, in my previous life, when my children were very young, I was one of the key founders of the Garden to Table movement in Boulder, Colorado. And so what I did is I was the chef, and so the kids would plant gardens, and then there was a curriculum that was developed around what was growing, and then we were able to take all kinds of things like the children kindergartners would take the sunflower seeds and take the sunflower seeds out of the sunflowers and then take them into the classroom and then use that as a counting experiment, to use it as for counting, and on and on and on, all the way up to the fifth graders learning about economics by making their own farmer's market after the harvest. And then I had a food cart that I would literally like my kitchen cart. And so I would come and people knew when I was there, and kids would get so excited because then I would go into the garden and whatever was growing and whatever inspired me that was ripe and ready, then I would harvest it and I would put it on my cart. And I walk down the halls of the school and peek my head into various classrooms, hoping to interject food into whatever lesson was being taught very spontaneously as a way to develop like these connections, these neural pathways for children. And then what was super profound and fascinating, well, that was super fun. Like, as an example, like I was jumped into a class and they were talking about Italy, which is super fun that you're there. And they were talking about Italian history or whatever. And I just so happened to have a whole bunch of basil. And so I made pesto right there for the kids. And they were just eating them like with their fingers and just like
Yeah.
loving it and loving being a part of it and being very tactile. And I think that that was super enriching for the children because, like, one of the things at the end of the school year, we had a big harvest, like in May, which is in Colorado and Maine, harvest don't always go together because it's still pretty chilly, but we would harvest greens. And then the children would grow greens, and then we would make salad dressing and have like this salad bar. And it was super cool because what was ending up happening is the children were developing a love of having their hands in the dirt and watching something grow. And then suddenly the barrier was crossed of like uncertainty or fear around like, oh, I'm not going to like that. I don't like salad. I don't like lettuce in my mouth. And like all those like finicky children things, which are real. Um, and I think because they didn't have parents and they didn't have all these other structures that like would keep those sort of like norms in place around what children are supposed to eat and what people believe children actually like. And I think the kids planting the seeds themselves, watching something grow, harvesting it, making salad dressing, and then eating it, they ended up taking that back to their family, and they ended up taking it back to their family. Like I would work in some underprivileged schools too with underprivileged children. And that was really amazing too, because these are families that live on a fixed income and don't have as many resources for fruits and vegetables, let's say. And so it's one thing then when the child is like in third grade or whatever and coming home and asking for a salad and asking for vegetables, like that's super empowering in terms of changing culturally, changing the conversation around what children want to eat and challenging our assumptions that children want to be as involved in nature as we let them, right? And as we invite in and create opportunities for them to create these neural pathways and these connections between what grows and what tastes good in their mouth and what ends up feeling good in their body. And likewise, then building on that, like in my restaurant, I never had a children's menu. And everyone
Good.
would be like, what do you have for kids? And I'm like, you don't need a children's menu. Like, they're supposed to eat what adults eat. I never had a children's menu when I was raising my children. Now, of course, maybe they wouldn't have, like, they'd have something more simple, like just noodles with like olive oil or something, but that's fine. As long we don't have like to have a special children's menu. We want to teach our children that they can eat everything that an adult eats, you know? Um, and now I lost my train of thought. What was the other part of your question?
Well,
It
I
was,
know you tapped a lot of the pieces of my question, which was, relating to how we can help children. I think you just brought up some really great perspectives. The other part that I would add to that is that that's also contact with the soil, and there's so many microbes in the soil that help our bodies adapt to things. And
yeah,
so I love the idea. I've always said I've never understood a children's menu in reference to a different meal. I understand a children's size because
yeah.
sometimes, children don't eat the same amount that we do. So that part has always made sense to me. But the idea of like a children's menu as a separate meal plan, I'm always like, why? Why is all of a sudden chicken nuggets like okay to eat? But, it never made sense to me.
Actually, I do remember. Thank you for saying that and jumping in because I do remember what the second part of it is that is equally profound and important. And you were talking about how food feels in your body and like the whole rice thing. And by the way, I'm on the same rice program that you are. Like rice and me, like do not get along. I cannot eat
Yeah.
rice. Even though I want to so badly, I like the idea of it. It just doesn't like me. Um, but what I think is really important about that, kind of building on the idea of teaching children from this very young age, that's like getting away from like packaged food, processed food, commercials, and like some of the societal, cultural ways that we have dictated what we should eat. And then you can follow that line to parents and like, or adults, let's say, where you feel like you hear all these things around like paleo diet or vegan diet, or like a diet to support like global warming, or like something that's more ethical for the animals, or like all of these societal structures. And these are all, in my mind, these are all mental structures. And then we make this mental decision to, oh gosh, maybe I should be a vegan. Like, I care about the environment, I care about animals. I don't want, I'm not going to eat animals. And like, there's nothing wrong with that inherently, except you're not making a decision based upon your inner truth and what your body wants. You're making a decision around what society has created, this construct that you want to buy into as a belief structure of your own that you would like to adopt. And that's all a mental thinking, and it's not driven by your body's intelligence. And I think that we've become disconnected from the intelligence of our body, which is one of the reasons why working with women with MS is so important, because it transcends, like, learning to listen to your body is a whole journey in and of itself. And that is different, just like you said, you and I both touched on our own journey to find the thing that resonates with our health the most. And I think it's about having this moment of truth that you recognize that what your body wants and needs is different potentially from what society says, what mental constructs are created, what diet books, what wellness influencers, all of those things that try to make you be like, oh, I should do that or I should do that, when actually none of that is necessarily true if it's not informed by what your body is authentically asking for. And then you go seek that, and then find the doctor and the influencer and the da, 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 da. But it comes from within first and not from without first. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I actually think that, a lot of these influencers or stuff, what I like about it is giving you more ideas
Mm-hmm.
because, again, depending on where you grew up, your relationship to the natural world and to especially food, because there is a very close collection there, is, can be very limited. And things like I said, elimination diets are seen as something negative, or, the idea of experimentation to figure out what it is that your body reacts well to is not something that we're taught. It's not something that we're even encouraged to do. It's like, eat what's on your plate, what I made you as mom. And I get the stress of it to a certain extent when you build your life on running, 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 running. So dinner is just this fast thing that I have to do for nutrition purposes, and I put it on there. That's one thing, but that's a different problem that you're trying to solve by just telling people, telling your child, eat everything on your plate. I've always been a big one also on time. I spent a good, I think like a year and something of trying to understand my cycles. And for example, I've always been a one big meal person. When I eat, and like when I came to Italy, I tried to eat multiple meals in a day. Oh my goodness, it just doesn't work for me. I need to have one nice size meal, and then I maybe have like a snack for dinner, like my lunch. And it's been like that now since, my God, for the last almost 20 years, because I did this experiment in Spain and then I, check it out tried different things. But I was living according to my cycles, trying very much to, because I didn't have anybody to answer to, didn't have a relationship, didn't have like a job that I needed to worry about timing. So I allowed myself to sleep when I wanted to sleep, work and stuff. And I found, when is my creativity levels, when is my strategic levels. But I would eat at around 2 to 4 in the afternoon. That was my food time, and I needed a good meal. And if I had that good meal then, the rest of my day and my morning was golden, type of thing. And that's changed. Now it's closer to like 11 o'clock in the morning because I burn a lot more in the morning. I'm, in a different sort of cycle of my life. But the point being is that I feel like the plants really helped. And I think for you, it kind of happened naturally because you were already involved in all of these pieces of growing food and stuff like that, which is when you start to see how plants grow, you start to realize, oh, wait, everybody has their own time. everybody has their own timeline, and everybody releases different things based on that timeline. So you can't harvest in February just because you really want to. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen. It's not the way the plants grow. You could do it artificially, but then there's stress and there's all these other pieces that are involved in that. And that's kind of what we're experiencing so much in our physical bodies, where that reaction to it. And so I really love this idea of how do we introduce more experimentation, not reduction, but experimentation of what are cycles, what are times. I know that it breaks social norms. I obviously know that there are times like tonight, I had my lunch, which was a nice size. I'm going to have a bit dinner tonight because I'm going out with some friends. But that happens once in a while. And so I'm just curious as to, as you were working through all these programs, how do you feel like the plants helped you, for you, like you said, to form that relationship so you could hear, oh, yes, you, basil, are actually good for me. Oh, you, rice, sorry, no. And how does it also help you going forward when you're like maybe working with clients or stuff like that to help them find their optimal nutrition, like that relationship? How do you bring that plant, and it is true, animal also, because for example, I am carnivorous and there's a relationship there that I've built. How do you bring that living being to, I am your predator, I am going to prey on you to a certain extent, and that's okay. That's part of an ecosystem. And how do you bring that closer together so that there is that listening?
Wow, this is like I'm loving this conversation. This is so good. This is great. What I love about what you hit on that really resonated with me right away is like you and I, through trial and error and everything like that. And I think now in hindsight, we can look back on things and recognize that it's this full allowance for the evolution of what we eat, because we are not like, I'm a vegan, I'm a carnivore. Like, we are not that. We are a being that ingests food for our nourishment and our health and our well-being. And it does change. Like, you eat differently for your cycle. You eat differently in different parts of the world. You had to go back and find the way that your ancestors ate and recognize that, like, that intelligence lives in you, in your cellular matrix. So this has nothing to do with a diet book or a diet any of that kind of stuff. And I feel like for me, the way I eat now, 20 years into my journey, is very different than the way I ate when I was first diagnosed and I had my first elimination diet. And so, but I think it's like the allowance for the understanding that your body is as intelligent as nature. And when you're able to really tap in and listen to your body, you're able to just respond to the subtle cues of like, yeah, you know what? There was a time in my life when rice worked for me, and now rice does
Mhm.
not work for me. And even as it relates to, let's say, an elimination diet, like, I think that, a lot of things are coming around that and understanding that it is a kind of a slippery slope in some ways. But I think as it relates to like chronic illness, and it also as it relates to, let's say, somebody who has like a traditional standard American diet, and then they are diagnosed with something or not, they just decide to change and shift. There is a period in which you are re-informing your taste buds, because your
Mhm.
taste buds are the things that allow you to welcome in the nourishment and begin to create that relationship with the food that's in your mouth, and as it gets into your body, and then the healing is like expressed, right? And so sometimes your taste buds need to be retrained. They need to be allowed space to fully receive a new food that previously would have been unavailable to you. And so I think insofar as that's concerned, an elimination diet is nice because it allows you to take a break from all of the things that really don't serve you and actually do alter your taste buds, like artificial colors and flavors and sweeteners and all of these packaged foods and and processed stuff. Um, and then once you start eating proper food, then all of a sudden your relationship changes just automatically, because it's informed by your body and you can't deny it. because it's
Right.
just truth in your body. It's just like, it's undeniable. Like I remember when I had my first elimination diet, it was pretty strict because my body was so inflamed. It was mad at everything I ate. And even though I had a healthy organic diet, uh, I was fermenting, I was making sourdough bread. Well, I'm celiac. So, of course, that wasn't going to work for me, but I didn't know that then. And I loved dairy. Like, I could eat dairy. Like, dairy was like my favorite food of all. But dairy, like, made me so sick, ear infections and sneezing and chronic congestion and asthma and eczema and all of the gnarly things, right? But when I removed all that and then let my nervous system fully rest and then sent signals to my nervous system to trust me and that I created this different relationship. And then my nervous system could just rest, my digestive system could rest. And then once I started to take back in food again, then it was a whole new way of like, oh, actually, girl, you can't eat the bread. And oh, no, 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 this isn't the thing for you. And so you have a new way, like your body will tell you like right away. I mean, it just
Right.
does. And so, insofar as that's concerned, moving on to like that whole idea of seasonality, right? The seasons within us and the seasons without us, and recognizing that we evolve and we change just like nature does. And if we start paying attention to what grows and the intelligence of what grows when, like I think that that's so beautiful. Like in the spring, you have all these bitter greens that grow. Well, bitter greens are good for your liver and bitter greens are cleansing. Well, how beautiful is it that this grows in the spring to cleanse you from the stagnation of winter, where you're eating super grounding food? And so like, wow, how intelligent is the planet to provide me with the thing and give me the signal like you eat this now. Likewise, conversely, in the fall, like how amazing is it all through summer, like grounding earth foods grow, like root vegetables and squashes and big dense vegetables that are keeper vegetables that you're supposed to, like beets and all, and even cabbage and things like that that you're supposed to keep through the fall and the winter. Like how amazing is it that nature already does that for us? Like we don't even need to do anything. It grows at the pace of nature. You can't harvest a pumpkin in July, in like May. And so it's just like, wow, like sitting back and watching what happens in nature. And even like I'm here in Costa Rica and it feels like there's no seasonality because it's like always 75 degrees and 80 degrees, right? But actually there is. It's like there's the rainy season and there's the dry season. And there are things that are growing here and things that are available in the rainy season that you won't ever find in the dry season, even if to the average like tourist, it feels like like it's always the same. Whether it's raining or it's not, it's still the same weather and everything is always green. But actually there's its own divine intelligence unfolding here too, even if it looks different than Colorado or maybe even Italy. And so I think like taking the time to really appreciate, like in my restaurant, people would ask me like, they would ask me in like April, like, when are we going to get that Brussels sprout salad? We love the Brussels sprout salad. And I'm like, in October, when Brussels sprouts are being harvested. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
no, you
Yeah, we're
don't get
totally
salad,
disconnected. Totally
like,
disconnected.
yeah. And so I just think it's interesting, like just really taking our cues from nature and respecting that, not forcing that or not being upset with that, but like really like fully bowing down to the tomatoes of August and being
And
like,
that your body reacts to it in that
yes,
way.
yes. And you're just like, oh my God, it's finally August, tomatoes, yes. And then like forget the store-bought tomatoes in January, just wait until tomatoes are truly ready for you to congest in like July and August, and September. So,
But before we keep going, I just want to introduce one of our eco conscious business partners. If you're on a journey of spiritual growth and personal transformation like I am, then you're going to love what I'm about to share. I want to introduce you to Gaia, a one of a kind streaming platform dedicated to expanding consciousness and exploring the mysteries of our universe. Gaia offers thousands of enlightening videos, from thought provoking documentaries and deep dive interviews to yoga and meditation classes that nurture your mind, body, and soul. Imagine diving into ancient wisdom with the Dalai Lama, exploring the depth of consciousness with Ram Dass, or healing with the insights of Matthias de Stefano or Joe Dispenza, all from the comfort of your home. Plus, you even find me on Gaia. Yep, that's it. I'm one of Gaia's featured experts. Whether you're seeking to connect with your inner self, understand alternative healing methods, or simply curious about the nature of reality, Gaia has you covered. With Gaia, you'll find community of like-minded individuals who are all seeking to grow, evolve, and make a positive impact on the world. It's more than just a streaming service. It's a gateway to more conscious and connected life. Ready to elevate your journey? Click on the link in the show notes to start your free trial today. Trust me, you won't want to miss the incredible content waiting for you on Gaia to support your evolving green brilliance. And it's interesting. I was listening to you and I was thinking about for a second how also this how deep this connection is, that even the moments that your body is supposed to rest, in the sense of like the winter, like the
Mhm.
fall going into the winter, right, and the letting go, we have all of those vegetables, for example, that actually hold, that are the kinds that you like have them, so you're not supposed to be working outside, you're not supposed to be doing
Yes.
heavy labor. Your body is literally, because we are beings of nature, we have that same cyclical cycle, and it's trying to, tell us, hey, slow down, rest, relax, plan, contemplate, reflection, all these different pieces. I want to go back to something that you said that's actually really going forward, which is something that caught my attention even when we first had our conversation, which is this fullest expression of food.
Mm.
Because this was kind of, to be honest, one of the hook pieces in all of the things that we talked about for me, because it really felt, the way that you were describing it, that it was coming from a place of co-creation, where
Mm.
it's like, that, and again, you hear it, there are those chefs, that you can see that same thing, that like they look at something and they sit and they contemplate, and they're like in connection with whatever this being that's sitting on the counter is, and it's like, who do you want to be, like who do
Mhm.
you want to become?
Yeah.
And I feel that when you were talking about that fullest expression, which is like looking at whatever it is that's in front of you, doesn't matter what kind of being, animal, plant, and really saying, talk to me, tell me at a deep level, what is the expression that I can put? Like, who do you want to be with, and how do you want to be prepared? So that, as you said, when you enter into the human being, you have an opportunity to really go in and express, not just in a taste that's like the covering, that's the, like,
Yeah.
the thing
That's the
that to
seduction.
suck you, that's the seduction, exactly, that's the seduction to get you
That's the
in. But so
seduction.
that when that finally gets ingested and you hit those stomach acids and you start to decompose into whatever relevant parts, you still have the integrity of being able to go off to that person's cellular level and say, hey, you know that you have these capabilities. I'm here to remind you. I'm here to remind you that you have a lot more power than you know. So, hey, cell, that little piece in there that you've been ignoring, activate it up, get it ready, because they need it. They need it to be healthy, to be well, to be happy, to be whatever it is, to be dot, dot, dot. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that process for you. What is that relationship that you have from, being that is sitting in front of you, to the comfortableness of, I'm going to chop you, I'm going to a certain extent, kill you, like,
Yeah.
but not really, because when we talk about vegetables in particular, when you eat them, most of the time they're still alive.
Mhm.
And how am I going to go from, like, I know that you're here because you want to be expressed. How do I feel what you want to be expressed to? And how and how do I do it in a way that is really in integrity with what's going to happen in the body and that react, like, how do I prepare you so that you can then interact with the person that eats you in the way that I'm interacting with you and the way you're being prepared?
Wow.
Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, no, it made perfect sense. I love that question. And it's a big question too. It's really important because it almost feels like we're talking about a new paradigm insofar as like inviting in the intelligence of the food to work in your body in its own intelligent way to for your own nourishment, your own benefit, your own healing, and your own vitality and your own energy, and all of the different ways that plants work in our body, and animals as well, by the way, because we're both on the same page. I'm a carnivore as well, and I think animals have just as much nourishment to provide us if we are eating it with integrity as plants do. But that's a different answer. But I think the most important thing, though, that you said, and this is something that I would teach in when I was a culinary instructor. Just because you can add a million, just because you can add a million different things and made food as complicated as you want to, like, that's all mental. That it does, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And learning restraint is like insofar as a culinary instructor perspective, in my opinion, that's the hardest thing, is to teach a culinary student to pull back and to have restraint, because you don't need to do a whole bunch of things to it because it's already wants to be what it wants to be. And so, but what I also love that you hit on is like transcending. For me, it's about transcending the mental and descending into the intuitive, working with it. And for me, it's almost like a meditation that comes through. I don't have any, like, I might say, like, let's say we're at the farmer's market in Italy and it's like tomato season and we're both like, tomatoes, like, yes, and we're going to do it. We're going to buy tomatoes. And I could have a million things in my mind, like, oh, we could do that, this would be so delicious, and that would be amazing, and there's that basil, and like I could get all excited about a variety of different ways it goes. But at the end of the day, when I'm in front of the cutting board with the knife and the tomatoes and all of the ingredients, I take myself out of my mind and I don't allow my mental agenda of what I want. I don't allow my mind to take control of what it wants to be. Now that's kind of different in a restaurant in a way, but like that's in where like you have, like, let's say the recipe creation process where you're recognizing that this is what this vegetable wants to be, and then you create a recipe around that, and then that gets replicated over the season. But as it relates to you and I in our kitchen, it's not about the recipe book, and it's about shutting down your mind and just being like in this Zen space with your tomato.
Yep.
And smelling the basil and looking at your pine nuts and being like, okay, and then there's this, and then you just start. For me, that's what I do. As I just start moving. I just slowly start, like, with the smallest things. I know I need to cut the tomato, and I know I'm going to chop my garlic. And then I just slowly start it's not mental at all. There's not very much mental stuff to it, because I can start with a mental idea of something I want to make, and then by the time it gets in your mouth and it's the food on the plate, it's taken on its own thing. And people would say to me, even my kids, would be like, Mom, you never make the same thing twice, and it's like, well, no, I don't. Or they'll be like,
That's how I am.
make that thing again. And I'm like, I don't even know what I made. Like, I couldn't make that again if I tried, because it's a different time, it's a different animal, it's a different vegetable. So I don't know, it just will be its own thing. Even if I want to make the same tomato dish over and over again, the tomato dish will always be different, because the tomatoes are different, and the time is different, the garlic's different, and my space is different, and my energy is different. Like, all of it's different. So it's just like, I think it's about that relationship with the food and recognizing that you don't always have to be in control and allowing other other elements to actually blossom within you, even if you're like, oh, I don't know how to cook, or my knife is dull, or I need a recipe, or all of those kind of things, or like, I don't have confidence, or what, all those stories, those mental stories we tell ourselves about why we can't do whatever, or we're not sure how to begin. You just begin. And
Right.
then slowly that confidence builds, and slowly you're like, oh my God, I made something delicious and I didn't even try and I don't even know what I did. I'm like, wow. And then you get a little nervous, like, we could never make it again. Well, no, you probably won't ever make it again. And that's good, you know? And like, it's okay. And I don't know, I just think it goes little by little. It goes by little degrees. And then suddenly the relationship happens. And then you're like, oh, I get it. I get it. I get out of my own mental way. It's not about a mental construct. It's about a being and being with it, and just slowly, slowly, slowly just working with it and working with it. And then that intelligence will just blossom and it'll take you where it wants to go, you know?
I
And
love so
now it's
much
the
what you're
vehicle of
saying.
expression, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, I mean, I'm a good cook, but actually I'm a good listener and I'm a good at respecting. And so I'm very simple, but I think I listen and channel more than I cook. And I think that that's just been an evolution in my process. So.
I absolutely love it because you're also bringing to light things about myself. As I'm listening to you, it's clicking things about myself that I hadn't realized. For example, I consider myself to be a good cook. I love cooking, and yet I very rarely cook for others nowadays. And when I do have to cook for others, I'm very nervous about it. I have certain staples, like I make a mean Thanksgiving. I am like, people love coming to my Thanksgiving, which it's funny because the turkey is standard and the way that I've always cooked. And here, especially, I love it because I can actually meet the turkey, have a relationship with the turkey before the
Yes.
turkey gets slaughtered. It's a whole different thing. And yet, the rest of the meal is very similar to the process you were bringing in. But I realize now, as I was listening to you, that one of the challenges I have, besides the fact of having very eclectic taste in general, and here that's about, but for example, I'm much more comfortable cooking in my house, like in my mother's house when I go to visit her for my mother and my brother, because of course we have cultural norms in common. But also, I think as I'm listening to you and I'm realizing that I very much cook with that relationship in mind. And I feel now that most of the time, there are moments when, of course, you go mental. So much of the way I cook is also connected to how that particular piece that I'm starting with, like piece, that's not even the right word, that being that I'm starting with, whether I'm starting, like today I started with a leek. That was like my centerpiece. I had gone to the store yesterday. This leek, specific leek, called to me, and
Yeah.
I brought the leek home, and I was looking at the leek today and I was like, I wonder. And, I started to do exactly what you were saying. But what I'm also realizing is that when I do it that way, the end result in my body is very different also. And so I'm wondering now, and that's something I'm going to explore in my own meditation, if part of my challenge also with cooking for people is that I also cook very much in response to how is this particular, like as I was pulling out the leek, I looked down and I had kale, which is very rare to find here, cavalloneri, as they call it, like kale and sweet potatoes. And I'm on a sweet potato kick right now, which is really interesting, especially, well, that's another story. I'm not going to go there. But I was like looking at these two, and I had bought them at different, moments from the same grocer. And I was looking at them going, you two want to be together tomorrow. I don't know what the hell that means, but you two want to be together. And I'm realizing that when I listen like that, I feel now, based on what you were saying, that I'm triggering parts of inside of my body too. So it's like the circle gets completed, not just in the creation, but in the ingestion. And in the ingestion, it's almost like you said, that fullest expression of that being, of that particular, vegetable or animal it's like oh, I died for a good cause, right? Which is this nutrition that then is like a composting in and of itself. It gets composted in my body, and then my body releases that in a different way that then gets, goes to other systems, and whether it's energetically or it gets, composted in the things that I accomplish or gets adjusted in other ways. And so I'm starting, as I'm listening to you, I'm hearing this entire cycle of how fantastic it is, and how I've realized that I can cook for people that are in my immediate circle, like people who I feel really very connected to. I feel like I can more easily cook for them. And I'm realizing it's because I'm also including them in the equation. I'm not just listening to like leek or for tomorrow kale and sweet potato. I'm listening to kale, sweet potato, and if I was inviting another friend over who's a really close friend or my partner or something like that, I'm including them, and that's the reason why the creation is always different, because the creation is different. We're all in different places, and I'm listening for that level that brings us all in harmony, because this is the final destination of harmony for all of us. Hopefully that made sense.
Oh my gosh. Well, I just love like how powerful the things that we're talking about are. This is like my kind of conversation. But
Exactly.
but what I love about what you're saying though that really resonated with me was like there's this level of cooking in community. Like if you're with your mother and your brother, I'm assuming there's a lot of comfort and you
Hmm.
don't feel like you have to perform. You don't feel like, what if they don't like my food? There's a lot of like familial comfort. So you can put aside any sort of mental, like, will they like it? Do I have enough food? Did I make enough potatoes? Whatever might go through your mind when you're cooking for like a guest, like a group of family or a group of friends are coming over and you're like performative. And
Right.
then that performative thing, when you are, and you're like, I don't know, and this is not enough ingredients, no, 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 no. Then you get all in your head. But if it's just you and your mom and your kitchen and your brother, then yeah, it's like, ah! And then it's community. And you're talking
Yeah.
and you're chopping and you're stirring and you're laughing and you're telling
Yep.
stories. And basically, you've taken the mental construct away. You are all in your heart.
Yeah.
And you're,
While I'm sorry, I'm going to say all the
yes, no,
while
don't,
still being aware that they might have intolerances or problems of
of
themselves. It's
course.
almost like that becomes part of it, just becomes embodied because I love them so much. I want them to feel healthy and good after. So it
Totally.
doesn't bother me that, my mother needs high protein, my brother has this thing. Like it's normal because we've all gotten there, not from a, like you said, mental space, but from a body space. And so therefore I can cook, like it comes out of me and comes out of the beings that I'm working with, of like, no, 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 let's do the maximum expression where we all want to feel good.
Yeah, because what you were suggesting and so far as accommodating, let's say your mother and your brother and their various needs, is like that's an expression of love, right? Like
Absolutely.
so you're in a space in that kitchen environment where you're creating with your family of like in your body, in love, in community, in reverence, and that all takes the center stage. And the
Hmm.
vegetables and the food that you're using feels that energy and vibration. So it, of course, is dancing and super excited. It
Yeah, exactly.
wants to participate. It wants to co-create with you. It wants to honor
Right.
your intentions. And so they're putting on their best clothes to show up to the party in their best way. And that's different maybe than when we take those same three ingredients, but we're going to invite friends over that have never eaten our food before, and you're like, I don't know if that person likes the kale, and I don't know if that person's going to really like the way I'm cooking the sweet potatoes, and I don't know, and then you can start get all mental about it again. And so I just think that there's something really beautiful that you were using that I think that we forget, is like that community, cooking in community, and what that, and cooking with love, how just those two things alone helps us get into our body, into the moment, and helps us get away from any sort of like fear-based cooking that we would be in alternatively,
Right.
um, where it's very overthought and like I have to get the recipe out and then I have to like scale it up. Like it says I'm going to cook this serves 4, but now I want to serve 8. And like, it's like very like
Right.
mechanical. And when you set all of that aside and you just get into your heart and into your love, then the food recognizes that vibration, right? And so it shows up with its best self in wanting
Right.
to, I don't know, it wants to please and be, it wants to make everybody happy. That's how I
And
see
this is why I think that I have the benefit, and when I'm home in Dom and her, that the market that I go to buy all my groceries is owned by a Damanhurian. Her son is the person who raises the cows
it.
and who also like grows a lot of the vegetables that she offers. And if not, they're from like she knows who's doing it, where they're coming from, the eggs. I just recently tried eggs that were raised um, on hemp and ones that
Yeah.
were raised on like what was it? I can't remember the other one right now, but it was like such a difference relationship and all these different pieces. So I have that benefit, but also, which is I think much harder, is don't we need to remember that our spices, like all the things that are dried, are also part of that world of they were beings that were alive and such, and so also their how they're treated is just as important as well. And I think that this is why many of us, like I collect the rosemary and the sage, and as much as possible, so many of the different herbs that I use are herbs that are coming from the garden, that are coming from the relationships around this area. I collect, wild garlic when it grows and all these different pieces, because I do think it's important for us to remember that it's an entire chain, and we want as much like I enter into that relationship just as much when I open my spice cabinet. Yes, there are some spices that are harder to get in touch with because of however they were raised, but it's all a big complete system, and how much we allow ourselves to enter into that relationship with that whole system. As because we're going to wrap up, because if not, we're going to be here for like 3 hours, and it's probably we're going to be laughing the entire time. But I think other people are going to be like, "Wow, they've got a lot to say," and it's like, yes, we do. This is an important topic. So as we're wrapping everything up, is there any like last minute, like last pieces that you feel are super important to share with everyone?
Well, I think what I want to do is bring in and put an exclamation point on what you just said when you were talking about herbs and spices. Because I think that we look at those today as something that we use to flavor food. And we
Mm-hmm.
forget that that used to be our apothecary,
Mm-hmm.
that that is the original medicine. And that long before there was pharmaceuticals, that was how we healed with herbs and with spices. And so, yeah, of course, you get nourishment from tomatoes and you get nourishment from animal protein, and eggs, but but we forget that that is nature's original medicine, and that everything that grows and all of the intelligence of everything that grows is the intelligence of Mother Nature supporting our health every moment. In every single thing that surrounds us, Mother Nature is supporting our well being, our vibrancy, our alignment, our well being, and it wants us to thrive.
Right.
And so Mother Nature provides everything that we need to thrive and survive. And it's just a matter of us believing it and honoring it and deciding to connect more deeply with that intelligence and that wisdom.
I am so glad you said that, because I feel like that is so important, and something that we have so separated from. And I am just thrilled about this entire
I know, me
conversation. But to
too.
end on that note, it's beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Christine. I am
It's such an
just so
honor.
grateful
Oh my God, I'm so
for
grateful. It's an incredible honor to talk about my favorite thing.
yeah, and for all of you that are listening, like where do they find you? I forgot to ask that, because I want to make sure we're going to put it into the show notes, but I want you to be able to express it. Where do people find you, especially for the holistic transformation guide that you are and the work you do with
Sure.
women?
Thank you.
Please, where?
Thank you for asking me. So, two ways. You can explore my work and my views on healing and the natural world. I have a Substack. And so that's Christine Ruch at Substack.com, right? And it's called, that publication is called The Fresh Life. And then I have my website, ChristineRuch.com, where that's really about my work as a holistic transformation guide. But that's really about teaching women to believe so deeply in themselves and their own ability to heal, and that we were born to heal and we were born to be in our own vitality and live in the fullness of life, and that nature wants us to. And so it's a journey into believing that, and to see that when you start to do that, then your body will naturally heal naturally on its own, and it starts with believing it. So, and wanting more for yourself than what society is telling you that you can have. And so, anyway, that's my work is my passion, and so yeah, find me on my website or my Substack.
And we will, of course, include all of that in the show notes. So go check out the description, go check out Christine's work, because that's, this is exactly what we need in the world. We need more people that are helping us explore these avenues to really recognize who we are as complete beings of nature. And I'm just, so happy that we had a chance to talk about this. And for all of you that are listening, of course, in addition to going and checking out Christine's work, if you want more of this, like, subscribe, hit the follow, all those important things, no matter what platform that you're on, because that's the way we spread the word. That's the way that we get this out here to a wider audience, so that more and more people can find their own health and their own wellness within the natural world and as beings of nature. And if you want to continue these conversations, or you want to work, more one-on-one on what's going on in your life, you can enter into the Naturally Conscious community, or just contact me directly. I am happy to talk more with you on how it is that you can create a life that is like a living ecosystem of health and wellness, and of, all this goodness that we've just talked about. So with that, remember to resist the urge to hold back your emerging green brilliance. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Reconnect with Plant Wisdom. To continue these conversations, join us in the Naturally Conscious community, your premier online ecosystem for plant reawakening and accelerated evolution and co-creation with other kin. Here, you'll find expansive discussions, interactive courses, live events, and supportive group programs like the Plant Wisdom Book Club and the Sprouts Writing and Creativity Group. Connect with like-minded individuals collaborating with plants to integrate these insights into life. Intro and outro music by Steve Shuley and Poinsettia from The Singing Life of Plants. That's it for me, Tigria Gardenia, and my plant collaborators. Until next time, remember, resist the urge to hold back your emerging green brilliance. I'm out. Bye.